for having me today. I'm excited to be here. I'm also especially excited to follow Shiv because I learned my new favorite phrase, badass marketing. So I'm going to try to weave that into all future presentations. So, I speak a lot to marketing conferences around the world and often sit on panels with marketers and folks from agencies. And a common thing I hear in every presentation I do or every meeting I go to is a common theme, that this is sort of the best of times and worst of times to be a marketer. It's the worst of times because things are changing so quickly. Tools and techniques that we tried just 5 years ago don't work today. There are new things we can be doing, which also, of course, makes it the best of times to be a marketer because it makes your job incredibly intellectually challenging. I began working on the internet, doing marketing work around 15 years ago during the first wave of the internet boom. And I think the internet sort of began from a marketing perspective in the mid-90s. And I think by the late 90s, a lot of companies and brands thought they had figured it out. And then the bubble burst and things changed again. Today, we have the rise of social networks like Twitter and Facebook and LinkedIn. And they're giving brands an opportunity to do things in a very different way and engage stakeholders in a way they never could before. Not just simply to reach out to them, but to build deep, long-lasting engagements and relationships. And I think that's what makes our job so exciting. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. At LinkedIn, we have the benefit of the privilege of being at the confluence of 4 trends that are shaping the internet going forward. The rise of social networks, the rise of big data, Enterprise 2.0, and the rise of the talent economy. And I'm not going to spend much time talking about Enterprise 2.0 and the economy today. I'll focus primarily on social networks and big data. Social has completely changed the internet landscape over the last really 7-8 years. We like to think of the evolution of the internet as happening in 3 phases. In the mid-90s, the portals began, like Yahoo. And portals were really trying to allow you to, we're trying to curate the web, give you access to what was interesting on the web. And that was possible when there were 25 million web pages. I think that was a number in 1997. And Google could sort of give you a guide to how to use it. Well, today, Google estimates that there are 1 trillion Facebook and LinkedIn. Increasingly, the audiences for all 3 companies are overlapping. Used to be people used to think about Facebook being for kids, LinkedIn being for old people. Well, it's all kind of melding together now. And so there's quite a bit of overlap. But there's still fundamental distinctions in what people are doing on each network. They are establishing a different kind of identity on these networks. They are building different relationships. On Facebook, it's with your friends and your family. On Twitter, maybe with people you don't know. And on LinkedIn, it's with your professional colleagues. And the kinds of activities people are doing are also fundamentally different. We think of Facebook as a social utility. Again, it's profoundly changed how we interact with our family and our friends. Twitter we think of as a public broadcast platform, giving you the unprecedented opportunity to reach out to hundreds of thousands or millions of people. I mentioned Twitter here. In China, Sina Weibo is probably even a bigger phenomenon in China than Twitter has been in the rest of the world. And you have now people, even technology celebrities in China like Kai-Fu Lee who have 11 million followers on Weibo. His ability to reach out to an audience is incredible and unparalleled. LinkedIn is a professional network, and LinkedIn is a place where professionals engage with peers to advance their professional careers, to become more productive and successful. For us, we have around 150 million members around the world. We're adding about a little over 2 members every second. About 40% of our members are in the US, the rest are around the world. India is one of our fastest growing countries. We now have 13 million members in India. When we started building a team here a little over 2 years ago, we're about 3 or 4 million, so we've come a long way. And our Indian audience is incredibly interesting from a marketing perspective. 57% of our members in India are decision makers. 24% have a household income over 15 lakhs. 32% use social media for buying decisions. 149 million business leads were driven on LinkedIn in India last year. So it's becoming an incredibly powerful way that business is getting done in India and around the world. A lot of folks think of LinkedIn often in the context of looking for a job. But when you look at what our users are doing, looking for a job doesn't even fall among the top 4 reasons. It's actually number 5. The primary thing people are doing on LinkedIn are they're building business relationships, they're establishing and controlling their professional identity and brand, they're gaining business insights, do the job that they have more effectively. And again, we see similar trends in other markets around the world. So that's sort of the way we think about the social networking world. The other big thing that's happening, really not just with social networks, but more broadly on the web, is the rise of big data. It is incredible the amount of information that users are generating on the web today. Some of it is active. Users are now contributing content. They're now blogging, they're commenting on posts, they're sharing photographs on Facebook, they're engaging in business conversations on LinkedIn. But they're also generating passive data, because as they move across websites, they're doing things like liking, they're doing things like sharing, they're doing things like visiting certain pages. That creates an incredible reservoir of data. There's so much content that's out there that it creates both, again, opportunities and challenges for marketers. From a marketing perspective, in a world where you've got 100 million users creating content, the challenge is how do you get your message heard? How do your customers separate the signal from the noise that's out there? It also creates new opportunities, new ways for you to build products that reach out to people, new innovative ways of marketing that we can have a longer conversation about at some point. But it's all driven by the fact that there's just so much data being created every single day, every single minute of every day. Again, it's a constant stream. It's really terabytes of information being created. And on LinkedIn, the data that's being created really begins from two places. The first place is professional relationships. So every user on LinkedIn, that's my network, by the way, is building a network of professional connections. So that's just my first-degree network, by the way. That's the people that I'm connected to professionally. That's about, I think, 1,800 people. My third-degree network is about, I think, 10 to 12 million people. And so that's a starting point for the creation of data, because every time that I create a new piece of content, if I like a product from a company, if I share or comment on something, it's seen by 1,900 people. Those 1,900 people have the opportunity to spread it to people in their own networks, and it creates a cascading effect. Again, that's what was my network. Every person's network looks a little different. Actually quite pretty, actually. But they kind of are an interesting map of their professional lives. The other source of data that we begin with is profile data. So in every LinkedIn profile, you've got information like seniority, function, location, size of company, education, professional interests. And that provides another opportunity, a lens through which we can create data, but then also filter information. So now what we do with all this stuff is turn it into stuff that you can actually use as a marketer and as a consumer. So let me give you a couple of examples of that. So one of the things that you can do on LinkedIn is create a company page. Over 2 million companies around the world have created company pages. And so some of the information on a company page may simply be information about the employees of that company, information about what it's like to work there, but it can also include information about the company's products and services. Now, every time one of our members comes to that company page, the content is changed dynamically based on their identity. We take all the data that we know about them that they've created, information about their network, information about where they work, what they're interested in, their seniority, and then customize the experience so that, for example, they see products and services geared towards them. They see recommendations of that product from people in their own network. So it becomes simple, relevant, and engaging. And the benefit for a marketer, of course, is that your message is incredibly targeted. You're not wasting your spend on someone that it's not relevant for. But we also then take all the information that we're gathering and share it back with you to give you insights. The other thing that people can do then on these company pages is they can acquire followers. So for example, in this case, this is a campaign that Oracle was running, and they wanted to get a gentleman who's an IT manager, to follow them. And so what they're asking people to do when they're asking for followers is someone to say, yeah, I want to hear from you. And I want to hear back from you when you're releasing new products, when you've got new positions open, when you've got something interesting to say and share. And now millions of our users are now following companies. Again, that provides an incredible opportunity for you as a marketer, because these people have to say, yeah, I actually want to hear from you. I want to hear what your messages are. But what's exciting about that is it means that your message isn't only heard by them, but heard by people in their network. So in this case, let's take the Oracle example. Oracle can decide to share a piece of information to all their followers. They say, for example, they want to ask if their followers are going to Oracle Open World next week. Once they do that, it shows up in the feed of all the people that have chosen to follow them. And by the way, people can now share that piece of content. They can comment on it. They can like it. They can do all kinds of activities, and that creates a nice cascading effect. From one status update, Again, someone else can like it. As soon as someone else likes it, it shows up in the feed of all of their followers. Then that person can share the piece of content, someone else can comment in it. It creates a cascading effect, which is incredibly powerful. You're now leveraging your followers to amplify your reach, to extend your brand, and to shape the perceptions of all the people that are listening to them and who care about what they have to say. And now we can go further than that and actually share you information on who the followers actually are. We may not actually tell you, we can tell you exactly who they are in terms of what at an aggregate level. We can tell you, what companies they work for, what industries they're in. We give you a lot of insights that kind of guide the way you message and kind of how you interact with them. We can also show you this stuff on an aggregated basis. For example, you can analyze your followers. You can see, again, what titles they have. You can see what companies they come from. You can see, for example, whether your message is working effectively with senior executives because if senior executives are following in high numbers or versus individual contributors. You can target very precisely. You can see the impact of your network. For example, you can see not only who your followers are, but which of your followers are the most viral. So for example, in this case, one company might discover that they've got the most followers in IT and services. But in fact, the folks that are having the greatest reach are people following them in the staffing and recruiting industry. Every one of those people in staffing and recruiting is having a reach of 767 followers. So you can actually use this information to sort of to generate new business insights, change the rest of your marketing campaigns. Let me give you another example. Polls have been around on the web forever. So again, people were doing web polls 15 years ago. So and you can do polls on LinkedIn. So you can run a poll, and here's an example of a poll I think run by Toyota, asking people about again what they were going to do to use to make their next purchase decision. And then when people take the poll, they get results. They get to understand what other people who took the poll thought. But then we can go deeper than that. We can now share with you as a marketer a deeper understanding of how specific audiences are reacting and answering that question. Again, by any information, any piece of data that we have, we can share it by company, by geography, by seniority. So what we see often is companies running these kinds of polls on LinkedIn, but taking the data that they get, because they can't get that data anywhere else, and they use it to influence a broader marketing campaign off of LinkedIn. Because one of the things that we have on LinkedIn is the ability to know exactly who is interacting with your piece of content and how they're reacting to it in a way that takes all the guesswork out of it. Where often in other media you kind of have a vague understanding of who the audience should be, and you go out and try to reach them, but you may be reaching other people as well. Here in this case, you know exactly who you're trying to reach. And you don't also have to just do this on LinkedIn. You can do it off of LinkedIn. So one of our customers here in India has been American Express. And so what they've built is a separate site that allows our members to leverage the power of their LinkedIn network and to engage in activity there. The advantage there is, of course, you create this unique experience that you can completely control, but because it's integrated back to LinkedIn, you have access to all the data and analytical assets that LinkedIn has. You also, though, have the information being generated on this separate site show up on your LinkedIn feed, so you have the advantage of leveraging LinkedIn's virality. So it gives you the opportunity to spread the reach of your message. So, I think we've been doing, we've been around at LinkedIn for now about 8.5 years now. And in the internet world, that counts as a lifetime sometimes. But we think that we're just beginning on our journey as a company. We're just beginning to understand how these data assets can be used on behalf of marketers. And so we've been engaging in some really interesting campaigns over the last couple of years where people are trying out new things and seeing some remarkable successes. One of the things we've always believed is that smart, targeted advertising provides tremendous value to our users. Marketing is content. And as it's targeted, our users get great value out of it. One of the things that we've always believed is for us as a company is that our most valuable customer aren't our paying customers, they're our free members. And if we take care of our free members' needs, we will build something of tremendous value. I think it's the main reason why LinkedIn has been successful. And we believe that marketers are part of that equation of giving value to our members. And so we've been able to create with our marketing customers and partners some really interesting, unique, innovative experiences for our members. I think that some of the more interesting things we've done for marketers anywhere in the world have been done in India. companies like DSP BlackRock, companies like Amex, companies like Volkswagen have been pioneers in doing innovative work with our customers. And really that's due to, I think, the creativity of some of the agencies here in India and I think some of the willingness of marketers to try new innovative things, which is really exciting to see. So, again, we think we're just getting started here. We began building a marketing team in India only about a year and a half ago. And so we've had an opportunity to work with many of this in this room, but we expect that to only grow and continue the coming years. So we're excited to be going on this journey together. So that's really all I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions you have about LinkedIn or about the role of data.
Well, let's give him a big round of applause. Thank you so much. So, we have a question. We have a person popping up with a question, and then we you're number 2. So if somebody else can go, can you stand up so my friend, a colleague can see you? Stand up and tell us who you are.
Hey, Arvind. My name is Karthik Ram. I'm also Singapore-based, and I run AdPhonic for Japan and Asia Pacific, which is a mobile ad network. Sitting in Singapore, you see lots of interesting use cases in Asia that are different than the rest of the world. For LinkedIn, besides the usual networking and job searching, what are some interesting Asia-only use cases that you've seen propping up?
One of the things that's, I guess, not surprising or sort of in some ways is comforting to us is, in fact, the use cases for LinkedIn around the world are remarkably consistent. So we look at patterns of behavior around the world. They look the same whether you're in Brazil, whether you're in India, whether you're in the US, whether you're in Europe. It's sort of relatively the same. I think that the biggest things we see happening are really fall into 3 categories. The first is really people are using LinkedIn to establish their professional brand. Our founder and chairman, Reid Hoffman, likes to say that the most important job any professional will have in their career is being the chief marketing officer of their career. Because what's happening in today's world is most people tend to only work in one job for 3 to 4 years. So they're constantly changing jobs. So they're constantly selling themselves. So LinkedIn becomes the way through which you're hanging your shingle out to the world and saying, this is who I am as a professional. So that means not only establishing your professional identity, but also sharing information and sharing insights that contribute to the perspective or the perception of you as a professional. So that's one thing that people are doing. The second thing people are doing is they're expanding and building professional networks. Now, something that's often people mistake on LinkedIn is they think that people on people are doing on LinkedIn is reaching out to people they don't know and building doing the equivalent of just passing out cards randomly. The reality is most relationships on LinkedIn are actually real-world relationships that people have taken online. So, for example, they meet someone professionally, they interact with them professionally, and then they connect to them on LinkedIn. But now, because they're connected to them on LinkedIn, they now have a real-time sense of what's going on in their network. When people that may have been their boss 5 years ago, when that person now has a new job. Where one of your biggest customers may have gone from one agency to the other, and now you know how to reach out to them. So they're using LinkedIn as a way to sort of keep tabs on the professional relationships. But the last thing that they're doing, and this is a place that we're investing a great deal as a company, is using LinkedIn to get professional insights. Using it as a means to learn how they can do their jobs better. That may mean, for example, using products like LinkedIn Today, which give you a sense of what people who share your professional function around the world are reading and consuming. They're participating in things like LinkedIn groups. We have over 1 million groups on LinkedIn where people are sharing sort of professional experience and expertise. And they're also sharing opportunities. Again, many of the world's largest companies are now using LinkedIn to find talent around the world. We see examples of entrepreneurs creating new businesses on LinkedIn. So in fact, there was a lot of companies in India, for example, have reached out and found investors because of LinkedIn. And venture capitalists have found new companies to invest in. So those are kinds of things that are happening not just in Asia, but happening everywhere.
So everybody raise your hand if you've got a LinkedIn profile. Have we done this yet? All right. So the rest of you, that's what you got to do this afternoon. You got to build your profile. For users, what's the way you can blow it? Tell us, like, what's the worst mistake you can make, or the most unexploited opportunity on the platform from a user level? And then we have a question in the middle back there.
Yeah, so I think the most important thing to think about on LinkedIn is context. So LinkedIn is a professional network where what you're doing on LinkedIn is a reflection of your professional brand. Because of that, you need to be careful, be thoughtful about what you do on LinkedIn. It's not a place, for example, where people tend to share a lot of information about their personal life. Now, mainly because a lot of people in a professional context don't necessarily want to learn about your personal life. So I think as long as people remain professional, people end up, having a good experience. I think that most of our users get that. They get that instinctively. And so we don't tend to see a lot of that behavior. One of the other things, though, that we also don't recommend on LinkedIn is connecting to people that you don't know, connecting randomly to people. Because what LinkedIn is based on is a relationship, a network of professional trust. The fact that I'm connected to someone means that I know who they are. And so when I reach out to them, through LinkedIn or otherwise, there's a professional context or understanding, relationship that we're leveraging. It's not sort of an open networking where you're just connecting to people randomly. I think those kinds of people who engage in that kind of behavior end up not getting the kind of value that you would otherwise get out of LinkedIn.
So in the back, tell us who you are.
Hello. Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Soumya, and I represent an agency called Zebec. We work with a lot of clients on their social media strategies and execution, and I do believe that LinkedIn has a lot of potential, to further, the value that clients can drive from social media. As an agency, we seem to have cracked Facebook, cracked Twitter, but I think the amount of depth that is required to engage with people on LinkedIn, and the time that we invest in doing that, in participating in groups and probably building new groups to start conversations, and the total traction that we seem to be getting on that in terms of measurement, we are not able to justify that. We do understand. We sell it to clients saying, you have to be an early starter, you have to be there, you can build your equity through that. But is there something we're missing? Or is it that, it's a platform that probably the clients have to engage more deeply in, because we probably need subject matter experts at our end to build that kind of dialogue?
So I think that clearly it's a different medium. I mean, the kinds of things that are effective on LinkedIn are often different from the kinds of things that are effective on Twitter and Facebook. And so I think that there are definitely campaigns that will work on Facebook and Twitter that wouldn't work on LinkedIn, and vice versa. For example, if I was Frito-Lay, I don't think I'd do a campaign on LinkedIn. It's not really reaching the kinds of audiences that we can deliver uniquely. So we tend to see sort of two kinds of advertisers on LinkedIn that see a lot of success. We see B2B advertisers. There's a lot of data now from third parties saying that LinkedIn is by far the most effective medium for B2B advertising on the web today. But we also see high-end lifestyle advertisers, because again, you have this incredibly affluent community on LinkedIn that's hard to reach elsewhere. So again, 24% of our users in India have a household income over 15 lakhs. So again, 13 million, 24% of 13 million, what is that? 3 or 4 million users on LinkedIn have a household income over 15 lakhs. You can now reach out to them and offer them products and services that they're likely to buy. So we've had some really interesting examples of high-end automotive advertisers using LinkedIn to actually sell cars, and have had a lot of success on it. So I think there are some things you have to do differently. Clearly, I would sort of think about marketing on LinkedIn in sort of two categories. One of them is simply reaching out to a potential target customer. And you can do that through brand advertising. You don't have to use groups to do that. But then you can go beyond that and have a deeper level of engagement. And you can do that through things like groups, but also through a follower ecosystem. Now, some of that may take a greater deal of investment than simply putting out an IO out there. It takes a little time to think about a group, because you have to think about feeding content to the group. But I would think that the level of investment it actually takes is not maybe as big as you might think. So again, what I'd recommend that you do is definitely reach out to our team here. We'll hopefully be able to give you some guidance on things that will work and not work.
So over here, we have time for one more question. Tell us who you are.
Hi, I'm Kirti. Work at Advertising Product Marketing at Yahoo. I have a question which has two parts. So the first one is, how closely is LinkedIn inspired by what happens at the product end at Facebook and Twitter? So if you look at your journey, you've introduced the LinkedIn shared button, share your status updates and all of that in the past few years. And the second part, which ties into this, is how does LinkedIn, what are the business processes at LinkedIn which you're trying to make sure that you're still relevant in a few years from now? Because 12 years ago there was Yahoo, then Facebook, now we have LinkedIn, Twitter, and the next one might be Pinterest.
Right.
So, yeah.
So I think it's fair to say that most of the major social networks have an influence on one another. I think it speaks to the fact that, one, we're all very close to each other. Facebook is about, I don't know, 4 miles away from us. Twitter is just a little further away. We have plenty of employees that have moved from one company to the other. And often what people sometimes don't fully appreciate is the degree to which, at a technical level, there's a tremendous amount of information sharing across companies in the Valley. So I think we all have an influence on one another. So things, for example, like Facebook features a product, has something called People You May Know. We did that first. There are things that Facebook did first that we now do. So I think we all have an influence on one another, I think that'll probably continue. The second part of your question is how do we remain relevant, and it's something that we always are thinking about because there are definitely companies that had tremendous success and then have faded away. LinkedIn, in fact, is our corporate headquarters is in the former buildings occupied by a company that was a world leader in their field in the early 1990s, Silicon Graphics. And I remember when I got out of university, everyone wanted to work at SGI. They don't exist anymore. So companies can fade away if they don't continue to innovate. I think for us, there are a couple of things that are key for us that will hopefully allow us to continue to remain relevant. The first is the belief that as something I said earlier, that our most important constituent is our free member. That means that we have to always put their needs first. Anything that we do to make money has to be value accretive to our free member. And if we put our free member at the center of everything we do, hopefully we'll continue to remain relevant and important to them in their lives. The second thing we need to do is continue to maintain a culture of innovation. LinkedIn is still a relatively small company. We had, 2 years ago, we had about 400 people. Today we have several times that. But I think we still, to a remarkable degree, remain a startup kind of culture. And we're trying to keep that going as long as possible. Something that I know Facebook talks a lot about, but we also talk about as well, is we describe ourselves as having a hacker culture. Where we really encourage innovation and entrepreneurship inside of our team. People are constantly trying out new ideas. We have hack days to encourage innovation. And hopefully that'll help continue the spirit of innovation in our company. If we ever forget that, if we ever think about simply just monetizing our business, if we ever think about just thinking that we have a dominant position and we're going to stay there forever, I think we'll lose. But something we always think about. We think we're off to a good start. We've got 150 million members, but there are 600 million plus professionals in the world who we know we have a long way to go. But we feel pretty good.
Well, I couldn't do my job without LinkedIn, as I speak as a premium member. Let's give Arvind a wonderful round of applause. Thank you so much for a great morning. Thank you.
Thank you.